So, for those of you who've been following my journalistic work for a long time, you might recall back in late November of 2020, just after what would have been the conclusion of my junior year of college football, I wrote an article for the publication I worked for at the time, The Tack, which focused on the question, is it realistic for Division III athletes to transfer to Division I? Most of us, when we were growing up playing American football, we had the dream and the goal of playing for a big-time Division I program in a huge stadium packed with fans every Saturday afternoon. When most players get older, they realize that playing college football at any level is a huge achievement, whether it be NCAA Division I, II, or III, or any of the NAIA divisions, prep school, JUCO, whatever else you can think of. But then again, some can never let go of that dream of playing Division I college football, with only 4 years of eligibility, they decide to gamble and transfer schools. The article focused on a good friend of mine, Tom Clancy. He was a quarterback here from Birmingham, England, and he went to a university called Austin College in Sherman, Texas for 2 years before tearing his ACL his sophomore year, and then decided to transfer to the University of North Texas, where he was able to make the football team as a walk-on in his second semester there. At the time, he was the only person I'd ever known personally who I'd seen be successful in making this transition, leading me to the conclusion that it's definitely possible, but you need to be exceptionally talented and work harder than you ever thought possible, both on and off the field. This spring semester just gone, another former teammate of mine transferred from Buena Vista, a Division III school in Iowa, to UTSA in San Antonio, Texas, where he made the football team as a defensive back. A very impressive achievement on its own, but one that should earn the respect of everybody listening once he's finished telling his story. His name is Alan Pruneda, and he joins me now. How's it going, Alan?
Going good. Stefan, how you going?
Yeah, great. It's really good to see you again. It's been, 2-3 years now?
Yeah, about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Awesome. So, right off the bat, as of this past week, you've also achieved the childhood dream that a lot of kids have, which is being featured in a sports video game. EA Sports' NCAA series has returned after an 11-year absence, and everybody our age seems to be thrilled that it's back. You're actually in the game as a defensive back for UTSA. How does that feel?
It feels awesome, man. It feels good. It's just crazy to think like it's been 10 years and then to be included in that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you played it yet?
Yes, I was actually playing it before we hopped on.
I'm surprised you got time with all the tough football practice you've got, but
Yeah, there's always time. There's always
yeah.
time to do the things we love. Yeah.
So what's it like? Do you play as yourself or do you play as the other teams?
Right now I've been playing online against other
Yeah.
friends, but I've been trying to play with UTSA, but it's too hard when everyone's trying to use Oregon and Ohio State.
Well, you got to pick up the pace, man. Get that NCAA title. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that so? Sticking with the video game for the time being, like, what's the main differences between NCAA and Madden for this series? Because I haven't played it yet, so I'm genuinely interested.
Um, in my opinion, it's pretty much the same. It's just like the movement is a lot faster and it's harder to tackle now.
Right. You prefer it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's really fun.
The PS5.
I feel like it's just the aspect of being able to use a college team again.
Yeah, it's awesome. So when I remember playing, it was NCAA 14. It was all the players would have just the numbers because there was a name, image, and likeness issue, so they couldn't actually use the real players. But for example, you'd have RG3 wearing number 10 for Baylor, and everybody knew who he was. Is it still
Yeah.
like that, or did it have the actual names now?
You have the option. You can keep it like that, or you can use real player names.
Right. That must be really cool. I mean, it's different to what it was all those years ago. I mean, you're actually featured in it. So what was the process of actually did EA contact the school and like try and get all the roster details and all your 40 time and everything? Is that how it works?
So actually, no. EA just contacted the school and asked us all to opt in,
Okay.
and really all we had to do was put in our name, our jersey number, and position, height and weight. That's the only really like measurements they asked for was height and weight.
So how do they
I
know
think
how
they went
fast
off
you
of
are?
like game film. Yeah, they went off of game film and like
Okay.
high school film and stuff like
That must
that.
have taken so much effort going into it. I mean, it's probably hard enough doing it for the NFL, where you know all the
Yeah.
players and all the
Mhm.
numbers. Yeah. So that's insane. So moving on now. So your journey as far as sports is concerned is one that's taken a lot of resilience. In high school, you had two very impressive seasons, freshman and sophomore year. You were an all-star district's varsity starter in football both years, and you were also an all-district in baseball your sophomore year. Junior year, you unfortunately tore your ACL, but you came back for your senior year and made the all-district team again, as well as winning the 110 hurdle district championship in high school track and field. You seem to do very well academically as well, so pretty solid high school resume. So going back to your senior year at high school, what were your plans for the future as far as sports were concerned after graduation?
Senior year was actually like a really hard time for me because as a freshman, in my opinion, I had a mediocre season, but like my coaches would tell me like you had a really good season. Um, and then that led me to work really hard. And then eventually my sophomore year, it wasn't by ESPN or Adidas or nothing like that, but I got ranked top 50 in my position of my recruiting class by an outside source. So that made me like really proud my sophomore year making that all state team. And then I was looking forward to going into my junior year. I had just went to a bunch of Division I camps and heard a bunch of good things about myself. And then I ended up tearing my ACL right before. So senior year, I was trying to bounce back, but it was really hard because we are coming back off of COVID and we only had 5 games, which made me ineligible for any All-Star appearances or any All-Star teams or any All-State mentions because
Yeah.
my stats weren't as of measure to everyone else that played like 10 to 12 games.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. But you got the opportunity to play high school football in Texas in front of thousands of fans, I'd assume. So it's a really big deal being picked for the all district team. Really big deal to be picked. Was it 40th out of 50? Did you say? Yeah,
Yeah, I ranked 47 out of 50. Yeah, my sophomore
that's really
year.
impressive. So were you planning on playing for a big time college football team? Or yeah,
Yeah, going into my senior year, I thought like I was gonna like have that spark to get me back up again, and that's not what happened. So I had a pretty good season still, but not what I'm used to. I got the all district unanimous utility player, like basically meaning they can put me anywhere on the field. But I really wanted a Division I offer, and at the end of my senior year, I only had Division 3s and twos like texting my phone. And the Division 2s, none of them were full rides, and then D3s not allowed to give full rides.
mm,
So I kind of went to my coach. He knew about this camp in Houston, and it's hosted by the Houston Texans. It's called the D3 camp. It's basically a camp where high school recruits go, seniors, and they try to get like their last offers, and it's a bunch of Division 3 schools there.
okay.
And I actually met Coach Davis there. That's where I met Coach Davis, and I pretty much like shined at the camp. Almost every coach was talking to me, so I had like free range to go anywhere in the country I wanted when it came to D3.
What made you choose BV?
Honestly, Coach Delk and Coach Davis, because how good they communicated with me, and I feel like I just clicked with them a lot more, especially Coach Delk when he showed me like where he'd want me to play and how like at the time y'all had Brady, so
Yeah,
like how Brady's stats were, and I just like felt like I could stick there because to be honest, my plan was to get film and then eventually transfer.
okay. Did you discuss that with anybody? That your plan was to get film and transfer?
No, I only discussed it with family and friends, but
What did your
I
family
started like
think?
yeah, family and
What
friends.
did they think?
They believed in me a lot
Yeah.
because they saw where I used to be, like like what I was capable of once I got full like health and full athleticism back. Um, a big reason why I picked BV is because of the cafeteria, and the training staff. I heard they
Well,
had a
it
really
picks
good
a good
training
year to
staff.
come because 2 years prior it was nothing like that. We spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah. They kind of baited me in. They told me that we had 24-hour range and meal plans and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought I was expecting that, but it was still really good. I love the experience.
Yeah, it was great. So, did your family did they ever convince you maybe it's a good idea to play JUCO instead?
I was
Or
actually in eligible for JUCO because
oh right,
I had a early college program. So if I would have went to JUCO, I would have graduated with 2 associate's degrees and like basically wasted years of eligibility.
yeah, okay, that's fair enough. So the options were play D3 or play D2 and then transfer, right?
And I wanted to go somewhere where I would for sure play because I didn't want to like sit for a year and waste a year of
Yeah.
eligibility. Yeah.
Well, it must have been very disheartening for you because I wasn't. So your freshman year of college, in your second game, I believe, when we were teammates, we were playing University of Minnesota St. Paul. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and then you tore your ACL again. Was it the
Yep.
same ACL that you tore in high school?
Yep.
Yeah, that
Same leg, same way, and it was coming right out of halftime too.
yeah, I can tell from experience. I've never torn an ACL, thankfully, but I have been injured and missed a lot of games, and I can say that's one of the most disheartening feelings in the world. Having to watch your teammates practice and play without you for a full season and not be able to do anything about it, especially in your case when your plan ultimately was to transfer somewhere else. How did you cope with that so early on in your college career? You know, you're hundreds of miles away from home as well. So how did you deal with it?
Honestly, I didn't deal with it too well at first. My grades hit like an all-time low, like since I've been in like elementary. So I started failing classes. I had to drop classes. I started missing classes. Like just for that first couple months, it didn't cope with me well. I also just like totally threw the plan of transferring out. So I was like gonna stick with BV and just stay there and play my years out. I kind of like gave up on everything, and I was like just settled where I was at. But good thing I had a good group of friends around me that helped me and lifted me up and like told me it's okay. Like even if you stay here, you can make the best out of it here.
Yeah. Did you tell any of your friends what your plan was really, or did you just tell them how you feel?
Um, Once I tore my ACL, yes, I kind of like opened up more and I talked to coaches about it and I told them like how I felt and what my plan was, and they told me they were fine with that. That being like as big as of a recruit as I was as a sophomore, they kind of figured once I took off and if I had a crazy season that I would eventually transfer.
Yeah. So what gave you the motivation after going through all that, bouncing back your spring semester?
Honestly, God and my girlfriend really. I talked to her every day, every night when I was up there, and she's one person that never gave up on me transferring back. Like she always believed that I can transfer. And then I got really really religious when I was in Iowa, so I was reading my Bible a lot, and I remember this particular day. She asked me when I was gonna transfer because I was already year two up there, and I like being emotional and full of like negativity. I was just like kind of annoyed by it, and I hung up the phone and I started reading my Bible, and I prayed to God, what should I do? And I kid you not, I had a dream about me playing at UTSA, and then that very next day, our coaching staff got released. So I feel like, shoot, if now's not the time, then when is it? So I hit the portal like 2 weeks later, and D again, just D3s and D2s were texting me. So I saw a video about Josh Allen, how he would send emails out nonstop. So I kind of did the same thing, and I was just sending them out nonstop to all the schools in Texas. And I got in touch with the UTSA coach, and he told me when their walk-on tryouts were going to be, and I made that my goal to be ready for that walk-on tryout.
Awesome. Yeah. So why did you choose UTSA? Because I assume it was because that's your hometown.
Yeah, because it's my
Yeah.
hometown, it would be easier for me and
Yeah.
cheaper. It was one of the cheapest. It's one of the cheapest
In-state
schools in
tuition.
Texas, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the cheapest. It's probably the cheapest school in Texas.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So going back to your BV, so we skipped over your sophomore year really. So I was saying I wasn't there, but you just recovered from an ACL injury and you had a lot to deal with. So how was it playing your sophomore year?
It was hard.
It
It was
coming back
really
from that
hard,
back from
actually.
that ACL injury, learning normal
Yeah,
again. Yeah.
because I didn't get surgery right after I tore it. I don't know if you remember that my freshman year. I kind of like stuck around campus and stuff because there was a problem going on with my insurance. I couldn't get surgery in Iowa. So I had to wait till winter break, and then I came down to Texas and got my surgery on Christmas Eve, actually. The
Really?
doctor had to fit me in. Yeah. Thankfully, he already knew who I was from my last surgery, so he fit me in. He helped me out, and then yeah, I got it really late, so I had to force myself really to rehab really fast. And then I wasn't fully recovered when I was playing, so the first couple games I had to wear a knee brace, which I feel like just limited me because it was always slipping around and
Right.
like I didn't have full range on my leg. And I remember week three, I think it was our first conference game against Cole. I ripped off my knee brace mid game, and I was starting because one of the starters had got hurt, and I actually had a really good game. And after that, I kind of just had like a good stat wise. It doesn't show, but like if you watch the film, I had a really good game, forcing bad balls, pressuring the quarterback,
Right.
covering people.
Yeah, it's tough to go off statistics to rank how good of a DB somebody is, because if you're a really good cover corner, then people just aren't going to throw you away in the first place. You're not going to get any
Yeah.
stats. So it's not all about getting interceptions, but you had a pretty solid season statistically if you just look at how you played physically. So 25 tackles, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for a loss. It's pretty good considering you're a cover DB first.
hmm
So we think were you happy with how the season played out for you individually? Like,
Yeah, it was kind of iffy because I feel like coach didn't know who he wanted to start. So
right.
there was like some games I'll be starting, some games another person would be starting, and it just kept flip
He was
flopping
starting
like
back.
that. What was it?
He was the starting backfield.
It was B Lance,
Yeah.
Nico, and then corners would rotate like crazy.
Right.
Like we didn't have starting corners.
That's interesting because I remember Coach Delk was more set on the corners and he'd rotate the safeties when I was there. I didn't play defense, I played offense, so I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it seemed like he was pretty set on the corners.
Yeah, well, that year we lost everybody. So like all the corners we had before, we didn't have none of them except for Coop, and Coop hurt his shoulder, I think. So we had a bunch of freshmen, and he was kind of like rotating them in, trying to figure out who can he rely on.
Interesting, yeah. So, would you have done it differently if you were the coach?
No, maybe change up the scheme a little bit. I feel like we were DB heavy, so he was trying to like put DBs at linebackers, but ultimately it worked out pretty good where I was at. He put me in the nickel spot, which is basically linebacker where we're at, but I I didn't have no complaints. I feel like we did pretty good defensively.
Were you happy with the team record? Do you think that fairly reflected how good you were?
Ah, no, we were actually really good that year. We almost beat Cole, and we almost beat. We could have beat Loris, but they just ran away in the second half.
So it was 3-7, right? Or 4-6?
I think it was four and
4-6.
six.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
and
close,
like
but
three of the games we lost were really close
yeah.
games. No, I can't remember who the other team was, but it was a home game, and people thought they were gonna blow us out, and we actually played a really good game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that seems to have happened every single time that I've been a part of that program. We just come out and surprise people. I remember your freshman year, my senior year, we were picked to finish last in the conference, and we just surprised everybody. And Wartburg were picked to win it, and we ended up beating them. And that
Yeah,
was
I
probably one
remember
of the better
that.
days in the history of the program, at least recently, anyway. So you've left that behind you. Okay, I'm sure you had a good time there. You made some good friends who I'm sure you keep in contact with, including me. Um, and you made, I noticed it's a really tough transition because, as I mentioned in my opening monologue, I got a really good friend. He went from a D3 college, you know, Austin in Sherman. Austin College, a
Uh, I,
D3 school in Sherman. Yeah, he transferred from there to UNT, so kind of a similar move. He was a
mm,
receiver instead. And he also came off a torn ACL, so it's a very similar story. And he tells me it was like he thought he was the hardest worker in the world for football, and then he went there and saw how hard the D1 guys were working in order to make the team. So what have been the biggest challenges that you faced just trying to make the team in the first place before you even were on the roster?
just the consistency of working out of because like I feel like as a hard worker myself as well, I never tend to think like, oh yeah, that was a really good workout. It's always like, am I doing enough? Because the guy that I'm working to compete against, he's probably way taller than me, way bigger than me, way faster than me. So is this hard work keeping me steady with him, or am I working harder than him? And my goal was to always work harder than him because I knew that my size was like a big factor. So I would have to be a lot faster, a lot quicker, a lot smarter just to be considered about making the team.
How did you do that?
I had a really strict schedule. So I was a online student because the school is actually really far from my house. It's about a 25-minute drive.
Yeah.
But I still, thankfully, thank God that He put this in my path. I still had to go on campus every Tuesday and Thursday. So my schedule for every day of the week, just to keep it the same. I don't like flip flopping. I would wake up around 5, 4 in the morning, go to the gym. Right after the gym, I would shower, go hit the field, eat breakfast, do my schoolwork, or go to work if I didn't have schoolwork that day. Um, and then after again, hit the field again with my brother when he gets out of school. So I kind of used him as another motivation to get that third workout in. I saw it as helping him, but I was still helping myself as well, doing the drills with him. And then I'd call it a day, do my homework, eat, go to sleep, and repeat the next day.
Specifically, what kind of workouts did you do that were different from when you were in playing D3?
So I focused more on my weaknesses. So there was some days where I did strength training, just trying to get stronger and build my maxes up. And then there was some days where I just did speed lifts, like power clean, like movements like that, trying to build speed and explosiveness. And then in the field work, so one field work day, I would have just speed or change of direction. So I would work on just running like 10 40-yard dashes, 10 100-yard sprints, uh, practicing my start on the 40 6 times, full speed up to the 15-yard mark, just to get that first couple lengths of stride going. And then I'd do some DB drills, just practice on my breaks, and maybe like 5 minutes of jump roping, just a bunch of speed stuff and change of direction, movements that I would actually use in game scenarios. And then when I went with my brother, it was more like intense football drills. So it was like sprint here, backpedal 10 yards, sprint there, while one of us is the quarterback. So we're kind of reading the quarterback still since we both play defensive back. And it was just like stuff like that, catching 100 balls.
Is
We
your
would
bro
we would probably start at like 4:55 ish, and we'd leave like around 7.
okay? Is your brother still in high school, or is he going to college now?
Yes, he's in high school still. He's gonna be a sophomore this year, playing his
Okay,
first year on varsity.
yeah. So there's no possibility that you can overlap and both play for UTSA.
Maybe if I use my medical red shirt and another regular red shirt, I could possibly play with him for 1 year.
That'd be fun. I'm sure that'd be great.
That would be
That'd
really
be great.
fun.
So you've got the experience of playing both. So what would you say the biggest differences were for you from being a Division III football player in Iowa to being a Division I football player in Texas?
I feel like the relationships that you have with the coaches. So D3, like our safety room is like 4 people. D1, our safety room is right now, I think it's around 8. And then on top of that, I'm a walk on too. So like the coaches still give me a lot of effort and still like talk to me a lot, but it's not the same as D3 where like on that personal level you can talk to coach whenever you want. Like he's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a different type of thing. I feel like the D3 coaches were more like on a personal level.
Yeah.
And the D1 coaches, they're still like there for you personally and they still care for you as a human, but it's still like a business. So like the way I see it, and no one's told me this there, but like it's just a mindset that you need to have because it's really true. They're trying to replace you, and it's your job to be good enough not to get replaced.
Yeah. So it's more of a professional relationship. Like they can
Yes,
cut you in
especially
kind of a
now with like NIL and all that, and the
yeah.
transfer portal. You never know what's gonna happen like next semester, so
How many years of
they still treat you
eligibility do
like
you have?
family. I'm sorry, what was it?
How many years of eligibility do you have left?
I believe 3.
Okay, so if you got 3 years, then they should want to keep you around. Maybe if it's you only have one, they're like, yeah, I can't do
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So
hmm
that's probably another downside of maybe transferring in when you've only got 2 years of eligibility left. Would you say?
It depends. If you're a walk on, yeah, it's kind of a downside
Yeah.
because you gotta earn your spot, like truly earn it. You gotta like show them. They're not gonna really expect nothing crazy from you. They're not gonna be like, oh, week 3 we play this team and we can use him. Compared to a transfer that they recruited, they're trying to get him on the field right away because they recruited him for a reason.
Yeah. Is there any chance you can get on special teams as a starter?
Yeah, there's chances, but you have to be like up there in the depth chart if you want to do special teams on the travel squad, is what I've heard. Because there's only a certain number of people they can travel. I believe it's like 70,
Okay.
and I think a whole roster is 120.
Yeah, there's a lot of people get left behind, and it's all business. Like they say, I'm sure they'd take everybody if they could. The
Mm-hmm.
NCAA rules. So earlier on, you mentioned you entered the transfer portal after the coaching staff all got fired, right? Is there any chance if somebody was listening to this and they were thinking, I want to do that, but I can't afford the tuition for a school that's big time D1? Is there any chance that you could pick up a scholarship as a transfer?
Oh yes, most definitely. One of the safeties in our room, he walked on a couple years before me, and he's now a scholarship player.
Okay, awesome, man. So, what do you need to get a scholarship from playing D3 to or D2, and then transferring?
I feel like you just got to show the coaches that you're willing to work hard. Like you go 100% every rep, no matter what. Like you're just giving it your all. And also, one of the biggest differences is the playbooks. If you can show them that you're studying your playbook and you know your playbook, they will want to keep you around because they know they can use you if you know everything. You're like a second coach on the field.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, they teach kids that from a young age. When I was playing, know your playbook, and so that's the first thing you can do. So, is it far more complex?
Way more complex. I remember at Buena Vista, you probably had like 8 calls, and you on like 3 of them you knew they were the same thing.
Right.
No, I think we're like on. I don't even know what install we're on, and we already got like 15, and we're still not done.
Um, so it's a much thicker playbook. Is it a lot harder to learn? Is that kind of another thing that you have to pick up so it doesn't disrupt your physical training as well?
Yeah. Our coach always preaches like there's no point in working the footwork drills if you don't know the coverages or you don't know what your job is, because then you can be doing the wrong footwork and the wrong thing. I'd rather you know what you're doing and do the wrong footwork.
Yeah. How do you go about learning the playbook?
I try to study it like the way I do my Bible. I read it every morning, every night. First thing when I wake up, first thing before I go to sleep. One thing that I started doing too to be more strict since fall camp's coming up is like at least study it once every hour, like at least like 10 to 15 minutes, just for once.
So at the moment you're in the summer season, so you're still doing practicing. You mentioned that you just finished last week, right? So what's the schedule like during the summer? Because some smaller schools you'd get the summer months off, and then you just come back and report for fall camp, and we just pick up there.
So we had spring ball during that spring semester, which kind of led into the summer. It led into the beginning of summer,
Okay.
and then we got a week off, and we reported back for OTAs. And we've been working out OTAs, and we finished them next week. Actually, not this past week. We finish them next week, and then we get another week off. And July 31st, we start fall ball.
Okay.
So you really only get like 2 3 weeks of summer,
And they
and
the
they're pretty
OTAs are
spread out.
mandatory.
OTAs, I'm not too sure if they're mandatory or not, but
Do all the big time players show up?
yeah,
Yep.
everybody shows up. Yeah, everybody shows up.
Awesome, man. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to do exactly what you did? Transfer from a D3
Um,
team to a D1 team.
I feel like you just gotta pray and ask God to help you because for so long I tried doing things by myself and it didn't work out. And then the minute that I handed all my worries and my thoughts and everything to God and I let Him take over, it became a lot easier. It helps you mentally and physically. You still gotta work hard, but you can't do it alone. You can't.
Yeah,
It's not it's just too hard. It's too hard on yourself.
I would agree. Yeah. So you mentioned the day that the coaching staff got fired at BV. You hung up the phone with your girlfriend, and then you started reading the Bible. Were there any verses that popped out to you? Like
I forgot what book I was in, but like I was having one of those moments like just God, please give me a sign, please. and I was truly like begging for one. And I forgot what book I was in, but I remember reading David fled, and then I went to the next chapter, and it started again. David fled, and then I went to the next chapter, and it started again. David fled, and then that's when I kind of like laid in my bed. Like I left my desk and laid in my bed, and I was like, man, David fled. And I'm not a believer in naps. Well, I used to not be a believer in naps when I was at BV because I felt like I was wasting part of my day. So I I truly disliked naps back then. But I fell asleep in my bed, and that's when I had that dream. Like in that 2 hour nap, I had that dream. Now I take naps all the time, though. I need to
Well, what
recover.
exactly was in the dream again? I know you mentioned it briefly. Do you want to go?
So I remember I fell asleep, and it was pitch black, just like nothing. And then I heard like a light flickering. So in my dream, like it was still my point of view. I started looking up from the floor, and for some reason, like I was like the size of an ant. So there was like bricks. It was like a brick wall. And me and my friends back in Iowa, we used to say, every day we work out, we're stacking the brick by brick. We're building our legacy. So to see that brick wall, it like signified that like every day I work hard, I'm stacking a brick. And then I remember seeing like an outlet, like it was like a plug, and I followed the cord that was plugged into the outlet up the brick wall. And it was like I was looking at a skyscraper, and it was like a UTSA logo, like the one right here. And it was like a bar light, and it was just flickering back and forth at me. And I was just like, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
Well, obviously it is a sign. Either it's a
Yeah.
message from God or it's your subconscious telling you that that's what you want to do, even if you don't know it. So your faith in God is obviously something which is very important to you. It's something I've always admired about you, actually, even when I knew you. Has it always been something which you've had, or were there any life experience which you had to make you realize that your main purpose in life is to serve Christ?
Actually, I didn't really like I wasn't always a follower at all. So being young, I grew up like in a bad side of San Antonio, and I lost a close friend of mine when I was in second grade, which made me like think like if if this happened, then there probably is no God. That's what I grew up thinking after that. Just because I heard so many adults say that as well, because of the area we grew up in, it was like a common theme to
Right.
lose a loved one. And then when I got to middle school, we started praying before our games, and I kind of started like joining in on the prayers. And my mom and dad have always been religious. We were like we grew up Catholic, so we were going to church and stuff. So it kind of started growing on me. But really, my end of freshman year of high school, that's when I truly started like seeking God because of my girlfriend. That's when we met, and she was a big follower, and I saw how much passion and love she had for it. And at first, I thought it was nonsense. And then I started going with her to church and learning more about God and truly reading His Word for myself, not taking other people's opinions. And that got me like way more into God, because from that time in second grade to the time my sophomore year, I had lost so many more friends as well. So just like experiencing all those bad experiences and some of the good experiences where I like came close to like really bad things, it made me realize there is a God out there that truly loves us and is righteous and just.
That's amazing. How has your relationship with God helped you as an athlete?
um I feel like it's helped me a lot. Before, there used to be a lot of pressure. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, I have to study. I have to be in the right spot. I have to be this fast and this strong in order to make this play. And now I'm just like, before I study my playbook, I ask God to help me absorb it, help me absorb the playbook. Before I practice, I ask Him to help me be in the right spot and to trust if the plays for me to be made, it'll be made. And it also helped me realize not every day is your day. Sometimes the other guy needs to catch that ball. You never know like what he's going through. Sometimes that play needs to be made for him.
Yeah.
So it helped me a lot mentally, and honestly physically too, because I used to really abuse my body with how much I would work and stay up just working, and it made me realize like it's not all about work.
Yeah, your body's a temple. Well, you got to protect it. I mean, people like to use that when they talk about dieting and substance abuse, obviously, but it's like, I guess it could be applied to exercise as well. You don't want to break yourself down. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't want to get too much into politics, but I mean, you can expand on it if you want on this question. So this past week, I've seen so many people acknowledge who previously didn't really show any signs of faith. Maybe they were like secretly had faith, but this past weekend, a week ago, obviously, the front runner for the favorite to be the president of the United States this year was shot at last week at a rally. And I'm sure you saw the video. He turned his head at the last second before the shot was fired, and instead of hitting him in the head, it hit him in the ear. A lot of people are saying that they think that was divine intervention, and have seen him have so many spiritual awakenings. What do you make of that whole situation?
I feel like yeah, that had to be God. Like at that split second to turn his head that slow, that like that had to be like I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason, and God has a purpose for them to happen. Like there was no coincidence. I went to Buena Vista and met the people that I met, and y'all become the people that y'all become. Because if I just don't believe that that's how it was, because Buena Vista wasn't even my first choice. So that one quote unquote coincidence of me committing there, it could have altered my life in a whole different way.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that situation as well. Like with the amount of time the shooter had to get set up and the amount of people that were reporting it, it almost felt like he was supposed to get shot, but God didn't want that to happen that day. God didn't allow it. So that little flinch of whatever made him flinch that way prevented him from losing his life that day.
Yeah.
And we talk about this all the time. Like we're living in something that's going to be in history books from years from now. This is only what the third assassination attempt on a president. The other two were Abe Lincoln and John F. Kennedy.
So there was somebody shot Ronald Reagan as well. John Hinckley shot Ronald
Mm-hmm.
Reagan. Somebody shot Teddy Roosevelt when he was running for president. And President McKinley was assassinated, and President Garfield was assassinated as well.
Yep, that's a handful compared to all the presidents that we've had. So
Yeah.
like, it's crazy right now to think about. But like, I feel like with the world we live in, a lot of people they just
Yeah.
forget about it the next day, or with the hate they have in their hearts, they just don't care. But like as a follower of Christ, no matter what my politics, like my politician, like what I believe with politics or anything like that, if it were to happen to any of the guys, like it just shows how bad the United States is in right now, like how bad of a situation we're in.
Yeah, it's I I heard a testimony from somebody who commented on a video, and it was a Candace Owens video, and she likes to read out quotations at the end from people who commented. She says this guy was 70 years old. He lived in Dallas, and he was only a child when Kennedy was assassinated. But he remembers his mother, falling to the floor and crying when she found out the news. And he said he didn't understand it at the time because he was so young. But his mother had placed all of her hopes in that man, and she felt as though it had been taken away. And I think if Trump was killed, it would have had devastating effects for the country and for the world. And I think God understood that, and that's why he turned his head at the time that he did. Did you see? There was a video which has been floating around. It was somebody back in March or April who was a preacher, and he predicted that he had a vision that Trump was going to get shot, and he was going to turn at the last second, and it was going to hit his ear. And it sounds like it's textbook prediction, as if he knew ahead of time he had a time machine. And then he also said, interestingly, afterwards, he was going to change his life, and he was going to give all of his glory to God and be spiritually reborn.
No, I did
And
not see that. That is
so
that is
he really liked
crazy to
that
think
video.
about.
Yeah.
That is crazy to
Yeah.
think about.
Do you think? I've spoken a lot about this stuff. Do you think that there's people out there who are like in America especially, who are involved in Hollywood and politics and pop culture, who are Satanists and are massively against what God wants?
I feel like it has a lot to do with the society we live in. So like they grew up seeing things and their experiences altered them to feel the way they feel. So like my pastor always says like it's not our job to save, it's Jesus' job to save. We can just bring the attention to the people, but we can't like force things on them. So I feel like that like a lot of people have negative experiences with other people that are religious, and it comes from like that back then mindset of like you have to be a certain way and live a certain way to do certain things. And I fully believe following his law and reading his word and trying to live up to it the best you can. But there's some people out there that they don't understand. Not everyone's where you're at spiritually. At one point in your life, you were where they're at. You got to give them that time to really grow and learn by themselves to realize it. You can't just try to force them to catch up to where you're at immediately when you've had years of different experiences and studying to get you to where you were at. So I feel like no matter where they're at, Hollywood or not, they've had like bad experiences to cause them to think the way they think and feel the way they feel about just a whole group of people
Yeah.
when that's not how it is at all. Every person's different. Every person has their own ways of communicating, and not everyone's as aggressive as that person that they might have had that experience with.
Yeah. When I say Hollywood, I'm not necessarily referring to the actors. I'm referring to the people that are pulling the strings. They want them to produce music which has got a lot of violence and derogatory terms for women, etc., and drugs and because it sells. That's kind of what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no matter what religion you believe in,
Yeah.
I like based off my understandings, a lot of religions tell you like what you hear is what you think,
Yeah.
what you hear is what you speak,
It
what you
affects you.
like what
It
you hear
affects your
is what you
soul.
see. Yeah,
Right.
it
Yeah.
affects your soul, your brain, it affects everything. It's like when you start thinking about buying a new car and you start talking about you want a blue truck. All of a sudden you start noticing all the blue trucks everywhere.
Right.
When you're constantly hearing about drugs, rape, murders,
Start
that's what it causes you to think about, and when it causes you to notice.
right. So you would recommend staying away from that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I try my best to. I try to stay away from it, but we're all human, and like I can't avoid it sometimes when other people are playing it. But I try on my own at least, especially since I grew up listening to that type of music, so I kind of like it already. Um, I try on my own to stay away from it and listen to more gospel music and keep my head steady and cool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of artists actually who've come out and said that they don't want to be producing that kind of music. For Dr. Dre is one of them. Ice Cube, sorry, from NWA. He was a very talented rapper, definitely, but he said he didn't want to produce that kind of music, but his producers made him push it anyway because it was kind of stuff that was selling.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, so that's what I mean when I say I think that the
It's
music.
kind of the same thing with
Yeah,
these movies too,
yeah,
and like the way people are acting on social media. A couple, like 20 years from now, back then, if you went back in time
right,
and you told a woman, "I'll give you $20 if you show me this," you would
yeah,
get smacked in the face. But now it's kind of like normalized, and they
yeah.
would gladly take that $20 now and show you whatever you want to see.
I like to
So it's
think
kind
that
of
it's only
kind of
small.
crazy.
I like to think it's a small portion of women that do that, and most of them still have the dignity and self-respect. But it's becoming, yeah, like you said, it's becoming more normalized, and it's really.
Yep.
But at the same time, I have read and I've listened to. I've got it written down here. So there's a podcast host who I really like. I think you'd really like her as well. I don't know if you know it. Isabel Brown. Do you know who she is?
Oh no, I don't.
She's a podcast host. She's an author as well. She's around our age, a little bit older than me. She wrote a book called "The End of the Alphabet: How Gen Z Can Save America." She's devout Catholic and a conservative, and one of the things she mentioned in the book is that the number of Gen Z Americans now say that they believe in God has gone up by approximately 8% in the past 3 years, meaning that there are now 4,800,000 more Gen Z Americans that have had a spiritual awakening since 2021 and now believe in God. So that's a good thing. Definitely, there's more people.
Yeah.
They're also trying
Yeah, and
to be more conservative than originally perceived. Far fewer Gen Z women are willing to take hormonal birth control because they're waking up to the fact that it's slow releasing poison. 97% of Gen Z Americans still want to get married, or are already married in the first place. They're deleting the dating apps because they don't want this casual hookup culture, and they're turning away from the hollow lifestyle that's been marketed to them for all their lives. So it's sounding really good in the wake of everything else, everything we're being told about, and all these. Oh, Gen Z is just a lost gen cause. It sounds like things are actually on the up.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound like negative when I say things. Like earlier, like I was just talking like a handful of women too. Like it's not like you said, it's not every woman that's
Yep.
out there is like that. It's just kind of like more normalized and more like promoted, I would say, because I remember too. I saw a post and it was like these girls posting a sign at a Drake concert, like what they did to earn the money to get there, and I was just like, wow,
Is it really
like
worth it to see Drake?
yeah, like, and it's like that's a like it's not every woman that's like that, but like that select handful, they get more promoted than the ones that
Yeah.
don't. So like I feel like it's getting pushed more and more to the younger culture that's always on social media. But like
It sounds
we're
like
doing, there's a
people.
lot of good things that don't get
Yeah.
promoted too.
Yeah.
Like what you just said, like I didn't even know that.
I wouldn't have known it if I didn't listen to her, but she spent over a year researching this book. Like, she is, on the contrary to what people say, she truly believes that actually our generation, despite what people are told, is good overall. And there's more
Hmm.
people who believe in God, and there's more people who are trending more conservative and traditional values in instead of all the stuff we mentioned before. So somebody who spoke about that, I'm sure you heard Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, back a couple of months ago now. He went to a Catholic college, essentially saying that his wife is the most important person in his life, in his speech to all of the graduating class. And his wife made it possible for him to have a family, and the title of mother is the most important job in the world. And he said women have been lied to by society, and whilst it's fine for women to want to be successful in their career, they shouldn't sacrifice getting married and having children in order to achieve it. And a lot of people, especially people on the left, condemned everything he had to say, called him a misogynist, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they seem hell bent on attacking the nuclear family and the sacrament of marriage. It's like, well, why do you think they're doing that? It's like, I assume you had a positive view of his speech. I assume you saw it.
Yeah, I feel like people just took it the wrong way.
Right,
Um, I feel like he wasn't lying when he said like the mother being just present in a child's life is the most important thing. I feel like that's the message he was trying to get across.
right.
Like you're more valuable to your family as a woman if you're at home taking care of the at home problems instead of both parents being at work and then you kind of come home and nobody really knows what's going on because I mean no one's present in the child's life 100% of the time or near 100% of the time. I grew up with my mom not working, and I feel like it had a great impact on me. Like
Yeah,
the relationship I have with my mom now, and how many problems that she wouldn't have known about if she wasn't home got prevented from getting further or bigger than what they should have gotten. She like kind of put a stop to a lot of them just from her being present and there for me and seeing how I feel after school or seeing how I feel when I'm home. Like just her being present and her
yeah.
being a true like stay at home mother, like it helped me so much more than it would have if she would have went and got a job and made that little bit more money to
Yeah.
which what she
That
would
that
think is
used
helping
that
me.
used to be the norm. Like, it used to be the norm that in America, the father would go and work and would provide for the family, and the mother would stay home and look after the kids, and they'd be able to afford to live in a four-bedroom house with a really nice car, a Cadillac or a Chevy, and go on vacation once or twice a year. And obviously, that's not doable anymore for most families with inflation rates. And I don't think we're better off because of it, honestly. Because like you said, having your mom at home, it's like that's really a blessing.
Hmm.
I was like, my mom worked part time when I was younger, and obviously she had to go and work, and she's made a lot more money because of it, and I'm very grateful for it. Definitely. Obviously, it's a different time now. Yeah. So moving on. Yeah. So obviously, you're a big Texans fan from Houston.
Yes,
How
sir.
do you think the
Yep.
Texans are going to do this year? It looked really promising last year with C.J. Stroud.
Oh, I mean, I just hope we win the conference again. It's honestly really tough because of how many moves everybody's making in our conference. It's just too hard to predict because I mean, just 2 years ago, the Jaguars won a playoff game, and then this next year they don't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I feel like the NFL's like it's too hard to predict now, but I just hope and pray that we win our conference and we get a good side of the bracket because man, the AFC is hard to win, and when it comes to the playoffs, it is too
So
hard to win.
if you win the South, which I think is realistic, then the worst you're going to get is like the 4 seed. So I think if you play the 5 seed, wild card team, I think you got a chance of making it. And like you got a promising young quarterback there. I really didn't expect to be as good as he was. Yeah. So what made you a Texans fan instead of a Cowboys fan?
Um, Growing up, I grew up in a 50-50 household, so the older people in the house loved the Cowboys because I mean they saw them win all those Super Bowls and all that, and then the younger people in the house, really I feel like it was just like I grew up with people that liked being the outcast. So my uncles were huge Texans fans. I mean he even has a tattoo of a Texans logo on his shoulder, and that made me a huge Texans fan because I really looked up to my uncles a lot. And also, like now that I'm at the age that I'm at, I realized that in 2002, not only was I born, but the Houston Texans were like brought back to establishment. So that's pretty cool to think about. And like I didn't really start like watching, like actually watching every single week until I got to maybe my junior year of high school. I would just watch like the big games before that, like
David Carr and Andre Johnson, was it, or was that a little bit before?
I think it was Andre. I remember watching Andre Johnson and JJ Watt
Matt Schaub.
and
Sorry, my bad. David Carr was before him.
yeah,
Yep,
it was Matt Schwab and
JJ Watt.
also that one linebacker. I forgot his name. He's like the best linebacker to ever play for us. I can't think of his name right now though because I'm thinking too far ahead. But yeah, before that I would just watch like the big games, like the Super Bowls
Right.
or oh, it's the two top teams going against each other. So I was like kind of like a bandwagon when it came to Super Bowls. I like the Ravens and whoever else was in there. I would just cheer for whoever was in the Super Bowl. But really, my the end of my high school is when I started like actually watching football. But I've always claimed the Texans.
Did
I just
any
never
family
knew they were
members
that
like
bad.
the Oilers when they were there?
I'm sorry, what was
Did
that?
any of your family members like the Oilers when they played in Houston?
No.
No.
No,
Didn't.
yeah, my family was they're big soccer fans. Like my mom played soccer. My dad doesn't really watch sports, but his parents are from Mexico, so like that's the sport we would watch. Soccer and fights. That's all we would watch. Soccer and fights.
Right. Awesome. How about baseball?
Baseball. My uncles were big baseball guys, like
Astros.
huge baseball guys. No, they actually like the Rangers and the Longhorns. But
You-
I like the Astros because of Houston.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like growing on to Houston. The only team we have in San Antonio is the Spurs, so I'm a diehard Spurs fan. Like I've been a Spurs fan since I was little, watching all the games and stuff. But when it comes to baseball, I'm still like that. I only watch the big games.
Yeah. Fair enough. World
I only
Series.
watch the
Well,
big
the
games.
Astros have been in a few of those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Had some controversy there as well, especially when he played in the World Series against the Dodgers. You know, my fan anthems, I'm sure you can see in the background. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were watching the Spurs back when they were really good, like Tony Parker and Tim Duncan.
Manu
Yeah.
Ginobili, Boris Diaw, all of them. Yeah.
Were you inspired by any of those athletes?
I honestly, Tony Parker was the one that inspired me the most because he was always the smallest on the court,
Yeah.
and like I saw how good he would do. So like it made me like I don't know. I feel like I'm an easy person to inspire. Like
Hmm.
if I always think out of the norm. So I'll kind of inspire myself just by seeing something and being like, oh, I can do that.
Are there any athletes who you've really been inspired by, or is in some model your game after, or something they've done off the field?
um. Not really, but one person I've been watching a lot of film on because of their size and their play style is Tyron Matthew.
Okay, it's good.
And I,
Good.
I like watching his film because he's like about the same size as me, and he's not the fastest or the strongest, and he still like finds ways to make plays.
It's a good player. I remember him in college, going up against the Alabama receivers who were like looked like twice his size going off the film, but like, he really held his own in there. Yeah, great player. I can see why he would inspire you, definitely. All right, Alan, really appreciate you coming on. You got anything you'd like to add?
No, it's just good seeing you again, man. It's been a long time. I remember being amazed by how much you knew about Super Bowls and the NFL when I first met you.
Yeah. That's I never went out on my way to learn that stuff. I just I watched a lot of football when I was younger, and my dad was big into. Well, when I first got into it, my dad had a bunch of old Super Bowl programs. So I was like, he knew that I was into American football, so he gave them to me, and I read all of them multiple times and picked up a lot of facts. He got me for Christmas when I was 9 years old. He got me a box of DVDs, and it had like all the Super Bowls in it and like some NFL film stuff in it. So I kind of just because I love football so much, and I guess in the UK it wasn't on TV as much in those days. Now we have like an entire channel dedicated to it. You can watch it 24/7. So like in those days, I just wanted to come home and watch football, and there was none on TV, especially in the off season. So I just watched those DVDs over again, and kind of just like ingrained into my memory now. That's how.
Believe it or not, I brought you up in the locker room, and one of my teammates was like, "All right, I got to meet him so I can ask him some questions. I want to see if you're lying."
Yeah, send him my way. Yeah, this is a
I will.
UTSA. That's the
I'm
UTSA.
sorry. What was that?
That's the UTSA.
Yeah, UTSA. Yeah.
Well, good to know that I've had a lasting impact on you. All right, man. Really appreciate you coming on. I'll let you know when this is up. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. That was episode 41 of the 50 Yard Line. I'll see you all next time.